That's as far up as it goes. Good morning. Thank you all so much for being here. Can't believe that they published in the newsletter and said last week who was speaking today, and you all still came. So thank you. So the topic for this month, we're going to be talking about will and forgiveness. Having the privilege of getting to be the first Sunday of the month, I kind of have an open slate, and it was an interesting experience getting ready for this talk because I didn't have anything to narrow it down for me. So I decided to start in the dictionary, or more appropriately, how do we at Unity define will and forgiveness? So will is, of course, one of the 12 powers, and we define it as our ability to choose, to lead and decide. And I found this wonderful writing. This is by Winifred Wilkinson Hausman. It's an excerpt from a book that's she's published, Your God-Given Potential. Some of you may have seen it before. She says, it's our job in developing our God-given potentialities to re-educate our will, the directing power of our mind, to teach it to become receptive to spiritual motivation, rather than to goals determined by our materialistic pursuits alone. One way or another, we are using our will, our executive mind power, all the time. We choose a course of action. We resist or resent. We submit or fight back. We aim high or we slide backward. Or we are willing to consecrate and dedicate our will to God and to let it be re-educated to go His way. In other words, the path that that is important for me to walk is the path that brings my will into alignment with God's will, letting go of my ego so that I can be the person that I feel that I was born to be. And then as for forgiveness, I kind of went the other way, a little more of a secular or science-based definition. Psychologists generally define forgiveness as a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance toward a person or group who's harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness or not. And I love, it just kind of dovetailed into our, our definition of will. Forgiveness is choosing, and so that's what I'm hoping to talk about a little bit today, is choosing forgiveness. I found this article online. This is from the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley. They publish a somewhat regular periodical they call Greater Good Magazine. And they say, just as important as defining what forgiveness is understanding what forgiveness is not. It's not glossing over or denying the seriousness of an offense. It doesn't mean forgetting, nor does it mean condoning or excusing the offending action or behavior. While forgiveness can repair a damaged relationship, it doesn't obligate you to reconcile with the person who harmed you or release them from legal accountability. Instead, forgiveness brings the forgiver peace of mind and frees him or her from corrosive anger. While there's some debate over whether true forgiveness requires positive feelings toward the offender, experts agree that it at least involves letting go of deeply held negative feelings. In that way, it empowers you to recognize the pain that you've suffered without letting that pain define you, enabling you to heal and move on with your life. And I really like the phrase corrosive anger, because I've experienced that in my own life, that um, that righteous indignation that comes from the realization that that somebody has wronged me, right? It can be a drug. It can be so addictive. It can be, you feel powerful in that moment, but um, after a while, it starts to feel kind of gross. After a while, I notice that, if I don't let go of that, then it starts eating away at that part of me that's me. So why is it important to choose forgiveness? To let go of that resentment or that judgment. I find that forgiveness is a bit of a paradox. Kind of on the face, it feels like it's something that we're doing to or for somebody else, but the truth is that the most profound effects of forgiveness are felt by the forgiver. And we like to look to Jesus as our way shower here. And so I found this was interesting to me. There were all of these passages are from the book of Matthew, who is the disciple for August, who is associated with the executive functioning or the power of will for unity. So first off, we just this is, some of you may heard this before, Matthew 7:1, judge not lest ye be judged. Karma, the law of attraction, whatever we want to call it. If we are judging others, then we can expect the world or the universe to, God to bring that back to us. Likewise with forgiveness. If we are putting forgiveness out into the world, then we can expect to be, or hope to be forgiven. From Matthew 6:12, this is right in the middle of the Lord's Prayer. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Again, law of attraction, karma, whatever you want to call it. What goes around comes around, as they used to say. And then lastly, we've got Matthew 18:21 and 22. Then Peter came and said to him, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Until 7 times? And 7 is kind of a loaded number, both in the metaphysical and in some more traditional interpretations of the Bible. 7 being like this number of wholeness, or a number representing completion, or just kind of the divine completeness of the world. So it's kind of a loaded question. And Jesus says back to him, no, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. Which basically, not to get too deep into this stuff, but he's basically saying there's no limit. There's no finite number of times. Let's see what I wrote here. The number 7, yeah. Number 7 is the metaphysical terms, is a representation of divine wholeness on earth. And then this context, 70 times 7 really means an infinity. He's saying we're meant to extend unlimited grace and forgiveness to our fellows. As we work and learn to align, retrain our will to be in line with the will of God. One thing that comes out of that for me is that I remember that my highest purpose here in this existence is connection. The thing that, the answer to the why are we here, it's connection. It's so that I can love you and experience my connection to God through my connection to you. So when I practice forgiveness, what I'm doing is I'm affirming or reaffirming that purpose by removing the judgments or the the conditions that I've put on, the condition of separation that I have introduced into our relationship that gets in the way of that connection. This is from the workbook from A Course in Miracles. Forgiveness recognizes what you thought your brother did to you has not occurred. It does not pardon sins and make them real. It sees that there was no sin. And in that view are all our sins forgiven. What is sin except a false idea about God's child? Forgiveness merely sees its falsity and therefore lets it go. What is then free to take its place is now the will of God. It helps me to remember that, the divine part of myself doesn't, and this is again from A Course in Miracles, it's invulnerable. There's nothing that anybody can do to me or say to me that can take anything away from that. And so the only part of me that you can really ever feel that harm, can feel that pain, is the ego. And once I realize that my ego doesn't really exist, it's just this, this illusion that I put up so that I can try to label the world and make it something understandable to my monkey mind. Then it frees me to, as this says, recognize that the harm is, is really not what I think it is. And this is obviously talking about our general experience. I don't want to stand here and say that somebody that's in an abusive relationship where they're being physically assaulted, that they should just remember that harm really isn't happening. That's not what I'm saying. But in my mind, I can take some silly thing and turn it into an affront, and that's where this is so completely beneficial to my peace day to day. So if that's not enough, I've got a few of the benefits that have been kind of scientifically linked to practicing forgiveness. I say sort of because these came from kind of a statistical analysis approach. This is again from the Greater Good Science Center. They say forgiveness makes us happier. Research suggests that not only that happy people are more likely to forgive, but that forgiving others can make us feel happy, especially when we forgive someone to whom we feel close. Forgiveness protects our mental health. People who receive therapy designed to foster forgiveness experience greater improvements in depression, anxiety, and hope than those who don't. Forgiveness may also play a role in preventing suicide. Forgiveness improves our physical health. When we dwell on grudges, our blood pressure and heart rate spike. Signs of stress, which damage the body. When we forgive, our stress levels drop, and people who are more forgiving are protected from the negative health effects of stress. Studies also suggest that holding grudges might compromise our immune system, making us less resistant to illness. Forgiveness sustains relationships. When our friends inevitably hurt or disappoint us, holding a grudge makes us less likely to sacrifice or cooperate with them, which undermines feelings of trust and commitment, driving us further apart, separating our connection. Studies suggest that forgiveness can stop this downward spiral and repair our relationship before it dissolves. Forgiveness is good for marriages and other relationships. Spouses who are more forgiving and less vindictive are better at resolving conflicts effectively in their marriage. A long-term study of newlyweds found that more forgiving spouses had stronger, more satisfying relationships. However, when more forgiving spouses were frequently mistreated by their husband or wife, they became less satisfied. Forgiveness boosts kindness and connectedness. People who feel forgiving don't only feel more positive towards someone who hurt them, they're also more likely to want to volunteer and donate to charity. They feel more connected to other people in general. Forgiveness can help heal the wounds of war. A research-based forgiveness training program in Rwanda was linked to reduced trauma and more positive attitudes between the Hutus and Tutsis there. A study of people who learned forgiveness skills in Sierra Leone found that they reported feeling less depressed, more grateful, more satisfied with life, and less stressed afterwards. Perhaps most famously, in South Africa, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission has been widely credited with encouraging forgiveness and reconciliation following the end of apartheid. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who was the commission's chairman, has argued that forgiveness is the path to true, enduring peace. And lastly, people who practice self-forgiveness tend to have better physical and mental health. Self-forgiveness is an important part of any spirit-centered life. I think we could spend an entire talk just talking about self-forgiveness. I'm not going to do that today. We've got the rest of the month, and and maybe somebody wants to spend some time. But with the last few minutes here, I want to just talk a little bit about having accepted that that choosing forgiveness is the right choice for me, not only on a spiritual level, but on a mental and a physical level. How do I do that? What can I do on a day-to-day basis to practice forgiveness in my life? And at this point, it's become a case of there aren't any long-standing grudges anymore. That forgiveness has happened. And so I don't really think about it anymore. But I do have, new opportunities arrive on a moment-by-moment basis. Whether it's, water all over the bathroom floor when I'm trying to get into the shower, or, somebody cutting me off when I'm driving into town, or somebody, riding right up close behind me, and, or, situations where I feel like big corporations are trying to take advantage of people like us. What can I do? So I've got kind of three tools. I have no idea what time it is. Oh, we're doing fine. Three tools that really help me practice forgiveness on a moment-by-moment basis. So the first one is compassion. It helps me to remember that every one of us is just doing the best we can with what we've got to work with at any point in time. And if someone does something that feels like it hurts me, it's usually or probably because they're in pain themselves. And if I use my compassion, I can, instantly have connection instead of judgment. I can offer to, I think, I don't remember where I heard this, but it was putting forth this idea of, when somebody is acting toward me in an aggressive manner, or in a judgmental manner, or in, some kind of way that I feel like is, they're lashing out or attacking me, or like, the best thing that I can do is to stop and say, how can I help? And that's where compassion comes in, is understanding that whatever, and for me, I've noticed a pattern where almost any time in the past probably 10 years where I have done something that may have been harmful or hurtful to somebody else was almost always because I was acting in a fearful energy. And so just kind of understanding that if somebody's coming at me that way, it's probably because there is something fearful happening for them. And rather than judging that, I can lead with my compassion and try to be of service in that situation. It also helps me to give the benefit of the doubt. I think most of us, most of the time, if we hurt somebody else, it's unintentional. There's probably very few people that go around, and I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. The Course in Miracles would say that it's not real, and I definitely understand the truth behind that. But I do believe that the majority of us aren't out there, looking like, okay, who am I going to go and hurt next? The second tool is empathy. I can try to put myself in their shoes. This is what really helps when I'm in that situation that I just talked about in the car, when somebody, we're coming up to the intersection and they're over here and I'm here and they're like right over in front of me and they need to get over here. I've been that person. I've been in a city that I don't really know my way around that well. And all of a sudden, the navigation on the phone is telling me you need to make a right turn in 500 feet. And there's solid cars, so to put myself back in that place and remember like, hey, this person isn't doing this to me. They're just trying to get where they need to go and they don't maybe know what they're doing. And that makes the forgiveness instant. And then the last tool is gratitude. If I can look at an experience as an opportunity to learn something, and if I truly believe in our 5 principles, most particularly the first 2, that God is good and active everywhere and everything, and that I'm naturally good and everybody else is naturally good because God's divinity is in us, then it's not me that's doing it to me. It's not you that's doing it to me. It's God that's trying to teach me something, and it's using these experiences with each other to teach me that. And as we were getting ready to kind of get ready and leave this morning, and I had my notes for this talk all ready to go on my computer. And I went to print them out so that I could bring them with me to reference this morning. And the printer wouldn't print it. And I went to the printer and there was an error message on the screen that said, we'd had this subscription to a service for the printer where like it was connected to the internet, and the printer, when it got low on ink, would tell the company to send us more ink cartridges. And we recently decided that like we weren't using enough ink to make it worth what we were paying for the subscription, so we canceled it. But what we didn't know is that when you do that, the printer stops being able to use the ink cartridges that come from the subscription. So we've got, mostly full like ink that I just put in there like 2 weeks ago that is useless, that we cannot use. And I instantly wanted to have this resentment about corporate greed and how we're getting squeezed, and how unfair it is. And so I went and I started doing the rest of what I needed to do, getting a shower, getting ready to go. And this tool came to me in the shower, this gratitude, this, okay, if I believe that God is everywhere in everything, loving me, working for my highest good, then what does that mean for this situation? Maybe it means that I've gotten too lazy and wasteful of paper. I don't know. I have noticed a pattern where I find a recipe that I want to make and I'll print it off and I'll use the recipe and then I'll put it in the place where we file the recipes so that we can use it again later. And then next time we want to have the same recipe, I don't want to dig through that stack of papers. I don't want to spend 20 minutes trying to find the recipe when I can just look it up and then print it again and then make dinner. But maybe a loving God working for our highest good is saying, you know what? We're not going to make it if we keep using paper at this rate and costing trees and wasting, I don't know, but I do know that I don't have to live the rest of this day struggling under that resentment and dealing with the feelings of anger and injustice that came along with it. So that's gratitude for you. Well, anyway, those are my tools for forgiveness, and I feel like I should have a better summary, but I didn't prepare one. But please forgive me. No, but the bottom line just being, forgiveness is important because it heals us. It heals us physically. It restores our connection to each other and to our divine self. Restores our connection to God through us and each other. And so that's why it's important to use our ability to choose, our ability to decide to forgive however we can, whenever we can, using whatever tools we can. And so with that, I'll invite you to join me in a little meditation here. Let's let ourselves get comfortable. Just let ourselves sink into our chair a little bit. Feel our feet connecting us to the floor, grounding us. Just letting ourselves be aware of our breath movement as it comes into our body and leaves naturally, gently. Just being aware of how it feels to be alive in this place, in this moment. We're breathing in and out, the beating of our heart. Sensation of the air moving across our skin. Simply noticing each sensation of our body, internally and externally. Now let's let our attention shift to our thoughts and how they come and go, seeing each thought as it comes up in our mind as a thought, a passing event. And then as we're ready, bringing the awareness to our emotions as they arise in our body and mind. Maybe it's frustration, restlessness, peacefulness, sadness, joy, or fear. Just simply noticing how our body, mind, and heart are all feeling in this moment. Now, as we're continuing to feel our breath moving in and out, letting our awareness ride the waves of breath, let's take a gentle journey of awareness through our body, inviting the possibility of letting go and relaxing. Allowing a kind and gentle attention to ease through us, letting go, letting be, allowing whatever is present to be just as it is. Now, if we can, let's bring to mind someone who has caused us harm intentionally or unintentionally. Noticing the details of that person, noticing what feelings arise for us as we bring them to mind. And when we are ready, begin to offer that person forgiveness. Saying to this person in our mind, using their name, I forgive you. I forgive you for the ways you've harmed me, intentionally or unintentionally. I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you. And through this, we trust ourselves to forgive in a way that feels right for you, without getting lost in the content of the story, the details of whatever may have happened. Now we choose to let go of the images or thoughts. We notice how we're feeling, bringing our awareness back to our breath, back to our body. So, take a few nice, gentle, easy, deep breaths. And lastly, offering gratitude to yourself, to your divine consciousness, to your connection with God and each other, for allowing the lightening of burdens, the letting go of harmful resentments. Thank you. And then as you feel comfortable, let yourself return to your body, to this place. This moment. All right, so I guess up next is our prayer for protection, followed by the circle and the peace song. All right, so Please join me in our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.